Let's look at the intel. 2:14 a.m., deep beneath the Iranian desert, inside the Natanz nuclear fortress, shielded by heavily reinforced concrete. Hundreds of centrifuges are spinning like normal. Then, we see a massive anomaly. Our analysis shows no fire alarms, no system crashes, just a tiny data cluster quietly altering its values right on the main control screens. No explosions, no incoming missiles or aircraft penetrating the airspace. In fact, Tehran's radar still shows a totally clear sky. Natanz sits deep underground, serving as Iran's main uranium enrichment hub. It is a heavily fortified complex, specifically engineered to survive conventional U.S. military analysis and airstrikes. 2:18 a.m., Iranian early warning radars pick up a faint anomaly bordering the Persian Gulf. It isn't a solid track, not a confirmed intrusion, just a weak electronic signal pulsing in and out of their detection threshold. Their network tags it as an airborne electronic warfare platform. Immediately, an intercept order scrambles southern SU-35s into the air. Coastal radars crank up resolution, fighting to secure a hard lock. We know it isn't a strike package. It's a single EA-18G Growler, skimming the edge of Iran's air defense identification zone. The Growler activates its mid-band jamming pods, entirely blinding the Iranian arrays. It feeds adaptive DRFM deception and low-level noise into tracking radars, scrambling target locations across the Persian Gulf battlespace. Iran reacts fast. A layered air defense grid comes alive along the coast. Multiple surface-to-air sites attempt simultaneous locks, trying to pin the Growler down. For just a few seconds, the tracking data converges. Then, total collapse. The phantom target jumps miles from its predicted spot. The Growler's DRFM deception layer is actively feeding manipulated radar echoes straight into Iranian targeting computers. Interceptors launch into the dark sky, plunging directly into a thick wall of electronic interference. The Growler answers with heavy jamming pulses and decoy signals, snapping the missile guidance chain in seconds. Inside Tehran's command bunkers, panic sets in, not from incoming firepower, but from a completely corrupted air picture. And while the IRGC scrambles to stabilize their grid, the Growler holds steady, quietly passing critical environmental and targeting data straight back to the joint U.S.-Israel network. Now, you and I can see the Persian Gulf airspace fracturing into multiple layers of control, while the Growler sustains massive electronic pressure on the perimeter. Deeper inside, a second track emerges. It is silent, blindingly fast, and virtually invisible to conventional radar. An F-35I Adir slices into the airspace. It doesn't register as a solid aircraft, just a faint, flickering ghost on Iran's screens. Multiple radar nodes frantically cross-check the data. Iran finally confirms a highly coordinated penetration directly from the U.S.-Israel network. The F-35 pivots to strike operations, perfectly syncing its targeting telemetry with the Growler via the joint U.S.-Israel battlespace data link. The mission profile shifts from simple reconnaissance to lethal pressure on the coastal air defense headquarters. 2:27 a.m. Knowing their ground radars are completely blind, Iranian command orders the SU-35 squadron to switch into a passive hunting mode. The SU-35 pilots kill their active radars, aiming to vanish into the dark. They use the night, trying to hunt the F-35 strictly through optical infrared sensors tracking its engine heat. This silent countermeasure pushes the F-35 formation into total electronic lockdown. They operate in strict silence, using ultra-short firing windows and constantly shifting altitude to dodge close-range interception by Iranian jets. Instead of dogfighting, Iran uses the Su-35 fighters and coastal terrain masking to set up deadly passive ambush zones. At the same time, multiple active aerial decoys, deployed by the coalition flight, begin flooding the battlespace with entirely fake radar and thermal signatures. This forces the Su-35 pilots and the defense grid into a chaotic maze of overlapping false targets. Israel executes swift precision strikes on confirmed hard targets. But as the munitions drop, Iran's passive systems warp the electronic guidance environment, deflecting signals just enough to ruin their final accuracy. Several weapons slam harmlessly into pre-planned decoy zones. 2:35 a.m., while the Persian Gulf skies remain choked by the Growler's electronic warfare and the F-35 strike pressure, you and I are about to see a third operational layer open up, far beyond the visible battle space. Deep inside Iran's industrial control infrastructure, let's track another data stream, slipping quietly through supposedly safe maintenance channels. Not via radar or airspace, mind you. It's moving through internal tech update pathways, the very veins considered fully trusted inside the Natanz operational chain. We're looking at a software package called Phantom Echo, slipped in via a breached maintenance channel used by Iranian contractors servicing Siemens Step 7 systems. It hides perfectly under the disguise of a routine timing calibration patch. Zero alarms trip inside this isolated fortress. But the second it hits that PLC control layer, the malicious code seamlessly locks into the physical operational rhythm of the centrifuges. IRGC command doesn't sit around waiting for further confirmation. Natanz is slammed straight into an internal isolation mode. They sever control subsections. Everything demands manual authentication now, killing all automated links. Their mission isn't uranium enrichment anymore. It's hunting down the source of the anomaly now breathing deep inside their own system. Iranian engineers manually trace the signal paths and quickly grasp the grim truth. This isn't a bad update. It's a highly structured intrusion buried inside their industrial control logic. They spot a ghost process disguised as standard maintenance activity. But it's operating on a deeper control layer, completely dodging standard monitoring. Phantom Echo isn't your everyday virus or a one-and-done exploit. It's a multi-layer cyber weapon. It blends electronic deception, industrial persistence, and kernel-level PLC manipulation into one perfectly synchronized, devastating operational package. First, it embeds in the SCADA monitoring layer, quietly syncing up with their industrial telemetry. Only after that does it escalate into the PLC chain controlling those centrifuge motors. The facility gets forced into manual control, slashing every single automated connection. They identify the suspected process and yank it off the visible control layer. They scrub its traces from monitoring systems and dump it into an internal quarantine. On the surface, things stabilize, timing deviations vanish, and operational rhythms return to normal, creating the exact illusion that the threat is fully contained. But here's the reality. What Iran actually removed was just a decoy fragment. The true malware core had already detached from that detected layer much earlier. It left behind a deliberate breadcrumb trail specifically designed to mislead their engineers. The actual lethal payload is nowhere near the areas you and I are currently tracking. 2:43 a.m. over the Persian Gulf. The aerial battle space is rapidly escalating. An EA-18G Growler maintains offshore jamming, while Israeli F-35I formations run precision strikes against outer radar nodes. These strikes aren't designed for total destruction. The real goal is forcing Iran to activate its backup systems. We want them to expand emissions and expose the true structure of their integrated air defense. The IRGC instantly launches a massive aerial counter-response to shield its vital command core. A brutal electronic warfare spiral immediately unfolds. Offshore, this forces both the Growler and F-35Is to operate under intense Iranian firepower and heavy electronic pressure. This violent reaction kicks off a new electronic escalation cycle. The Growler hits a chaotic interference environment as Iran adapts jamming frequencies in real time, forcing U.S. military analysis to continuously restructure our electronic warfare model on the fly. Meanwhile, back on the ground, Iran's passive radar networks start tightening detection zones around the Israeli aircraft, slashing their maneuver space and degrading stealth. But the most critical impact is happening deep inside Natanz. When Iran activates isolation mode and panics into manual control, that sudden jolt creates a tiny, temporary timing gap in the system logic. That gap is the exact window Phantom Echo was hunting for. By frantically trying to defend itself, Iran unknowingly holds the door open for the malware to strike deeper. 2:55 a.m. We hit maximum escalation across the entire Persian Gulf airspace. Iran's air defense network suddenly concentrates every radar, missile, and electronic asset into one massive unified response structure. Through the absolute chaos of layered jamming and multi-node tracking, let's analyze this pivot. Iranian sensors temporarily converge, miraculously generating a viable firing solution against that Israeli F-35I Adir formation. Simultaneously, a brutal electronic suppression wave slams the Israeli jets, severely degrading their advanced radar and precision guidance systems. Forcing the F-35Y into a reduced combat status with dangerously unstable precision strike capability, the U.S. response is immediate. The EA-18G Growler shifts straight into full-blown electronic counterattack mode. We're tracking heavy jamming, blasting Iranian emitters, coordinating AGM-88 strikes against key radar nodes, maintaining F-35I lock. The Persian Gulf becomes a dense electronic war zone. Both sides hit a brutal, high-intensity tactical stalemate. Iranian air defenses are pushed to their absolute breaking point against this joint pressure. It creates massive engagement chaos. Nobody holds a clear tactical advantage yet. But the second that outer defensive grid becomes completely overloaded, the critical core beneath Iranian ground infrastructure is left wide open. At this stage, we observe a grinding deadlock. Both forces are scoring only partial tactical victories. Neither claims total dominance, since the F-35I remains degraded. Iranian systems stay active, but dangerously overstretched. The electronic warfare loop locks into a balanced cycle of disruption. But beneath that gridlock, the Natanz strike continues completely unaffected by the aerial stalemate above. 3:10 a.m. The dogfight upstairs stays locked in a very fragile stalemate. Here's the turning point. You and I are watching the hidden payload shift from dormant to active control. Down at the kernel level, Phantom Echo violently hijacks the entire centrifuge control chain. It forces those centrifuges into wild oscillation cycles far beyond safe limits. This triggers catastrophic mechanical resonance across multiple rotor assemblies. Simultaneously, the electronic war upstairs violently shifts, backed by continuous signal support from the Growler. The F-35I Adir regains full targeting stability. It syncs with the Allied network to strike those exposed Iranian radar nodes. This directly enables the United States and Israel to fuse battlefield data right into a unified multi-axis strike network. That instantly translates into brutal precision attacks against exposed radar and command nodes. The crushing pressure quickly suppresses whatever air defense structure remains active. Inside Iranian command centers, total collapse hits as two simultaneous crises explode. Natanz tears itself apart from inside, while above-ground precision strikes systematically dismantle their radar infrastructure. The Iranian Guard must split its response, totally overwhelming their decision cycles and shattering operational coordination. Losing grip on both domains, Iran issues a hard withdrawal order and shuts down all radar emissions. They pull forces back into hardened underground bunkers to preserve command continuity and save personnel. As Iranian defenses fall back, United States and Israeli forces secure their objectives and exit the region in tight formation, holding strict electronic silence out of contested airspace. The operation wraps up with Iran's defense network completely fragmented and the Natanz core left critically disabled. In our U.S. military analysis, the most extraordinary aspect wasn't the missiles, it was Phantom Echo, a next-generation infiltration architecture flawlessly synchronized across electronic warfare, stealth penetration, and deep industrial sabotage layers. Unlike Stuxnet in the 2000s, Phantom Echo didn't need a flash drive or physical insertion. That payload was already buried deep inside compromised industrial maintenance pathways long before the first jet launched. During the actual assault, electronic warfare aircraft pushed electromagnetic masking and heavy signal manipulation to perfectly hide the activation sequence, while Iran's panicked defensive protocols unknowingly kicked open the final access window inside Natanz. Iran completely believed they were fighting a traditional air battle over the Persian Gulf. But as you and I know, the air war was only outer cover for the deeper operation inside. Every single radar ping, every isolation procedure, every frantic emergency response just pushed that facility closer to triggering Phantom Echo's final, devastating execution chain.